Hi, this is Dr. Clarence R. Pearson, Sr., and welcome to My View, a podcast where I offer my professional perspective on today's most pressing geopolitical and socioeconomic issues. Recently, my attention has been drawn to developments in Liberia, where public officials are celebrating loans from the IMF, putting the public under the impression that it's free money. Here is my view on the matter: the illusion of free money, Liberia's IMF lifeline, and the cost of borrowed stability. Liberia's new IMF package should be welcomed with caution, not celebrated as free money. On April 27, 2026, the IMF approved a 21-month Resilience and Sustainability Facility arrangement of SDR 193.8 million, about 266 million, while also completing the third review of Liberia's extended credit facility and unlocking an immediate $26.49 million disbursement. The IMF described the package as support for macroeconomic stability, debt sustainability, governance reforms, and climate resilience. But it remains a loan based arrangement tied to policy conditions, not a gift. That distinction matters because public language shapes public accountability. When borrowed money is framed as a diplomatic victory, citizens may overlook the burden attached to it. IMF lending can signal international confidence, unlock donor support, and provide breathing room during fiscal stress. But it also requires repayment and reforms. In Liberia's case, the program is linked to fiscal discipline, debt management, governance improvements, stronger reserves, and revenue measures, including movement toward tax reform. The deeper concern is that Liberia has been here before. In 2010, after years of post war recovery, Liberia received major debt relief under the HIPC process, including cancellation that helped remove roughly $2.7 billion in external debt obligations. That relief was meant to give the country a fresh start. Yet by 2025, IMF and World Bank assessments again describe Liberia as at moderate risk of external debt distress and high risk of total public debt distress. This does not mean Liberia is bankrupt. Much of its external debt is concessional, meaning lower interest rates and longer repayment periods. But concessional does not mean harmless. Debt service still competes with schools, hospitals, roads, agriculture, sanitation, and public sector reform. When a growing share of domestic revenue goes toward paying old obligations, the state loses fiscal space for development. Stability on an IMF spreadsheet is not the same as relief in a Liberian household. The central question, therefore, is not whether Liberia should reject IMF support. In the short term, the arrangement may be necessary. The question is whether Liberia is using this breathing room to build a self-financing economy or merely postponing another debt reckoning. A sustainable path requires a shift from borrowing to survive toward raising and managing domestic resources responsibly. Liberia must broaden its tax base without punishing the poor, implement any VAT reform gradually with exemptions for basic food, medicine, and agricultural inputs, and reduce wasteful recurrent spending. It must also confront the larger scandal of natural resource leakage. A country rich in iron ore, gold, timber, rubber, and other assets should not remain trapped in a cycle where it borrows abroad to fund basic development at home. The mining and forestry sectors must become engines of national revenue, not corridors of elite extraction. This requires transparent concession agreements, stronger leti enforcement, modern royalty structures that capture windfall gains when global commodity prices rise, and public disclosure of production, export, and tax data. If Liberia cannot accurately measure what leaves its soil, it cannot honestly plan what enters its treasury. The government should also explore debt for development and debt for climate swaps, especially where creditors are willing to convert repayment obligations into verified investments in education, health, conservation, and climate resilient infrastructure. Such tools are not substitutes for discipline, but they can help redirect debt pressure toward measurable public benefit. The IMF package is a bridge, it is not a destination. If Liberia crosses that bridge only to continue the same patterns of weak revenue collection, opaque concessions, excessive administrative spending, and political celebration of borrowed money, the country will return to the same crisis under a different name. True economic sovereignty will not come from Washington approval alone. It will come when Liberia can fund its own priorities from its own productive economy, protect its citizens from unfair tax burdens, and prove that every borrowed dollar today creates value greater than the debt tomorrow. My View is a continuing series where I share informed commentary on a wide range of geopolitical and socioeconomic topics. If you found today's discussion helpful, please follow, subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I invite you to explore other My View episodes available online. Until we meet again, goodbye.